I confirmed with my kids the day before. They said yes to Mother's Day brunch. I set the table with my best china. By 6 p.m., I was throwing the wilted flowers in the trash. By 10 p.m., they were at my door not to apologize, but to ask for $3,000. That night, I bought a one-way ticket out of their lives. I spent Mother's Day completely alone while my children went off to a friend's party, even though I had confirmed with them the day before that they would be coming to brunch, and they had both said yes. I cried the entire afternoon in the empty living room, but that very night they returned asking for money to pay their bills. What they didn't know was that I had already bought my one-way ticket, and that changed everything. The table had been set since 11 o'clock in the morning. Clean linens, the good china I only brought out for special occasions, the cloth napkins I had ironed the night before. In the center, a modest arrangement of flowers I bought with the last few dollars left from my Social Security check. The chicken was in the oven, the potatoes peeled, the salad prepared, everything ready for Mother's Day brunch. I had confirmed with them the day before. I called Tanisha first. She answered in a rush as always, with that distracted tone she uses when she's multitasking. "Yes, Mama. Of course, we'll be there," she said. Then I called Malik. He was more direct. "Yeah, Ma, we're coming. Don't worry about it." He hung up fast. I was relieved. I thought that this time would be different. I thought that this time they would remember. I settled onto the living room sofa and waited. 12 o'clock. Nothing. By 12:30, that familiar knot tightened in my stomach. At 1 o'clock sharp, the chicken was ready. I took it out of the oven. The smell filled the empty house. I sat down at the set table and waited. At 2 o'clock p.m., I dialed Tanisha's number. No answer. I tried Malik, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. The food was getting cold. I walked to the window. The street was quiet. Some families passed by, laughing, mothers with their children, flowers in their hands, sharing hugs. I returned to the table and sat alone across from all those empty plates. Then I understood. They weren't coming. Again. Not this year. Just like last year. Just like my birthday. Just like Christmas. They always had an excuse. Always something more important than me. I stayed seated there. I don't know how long. The clock ticked to 3, then 4, then 5. The evening light shifted, shadows stretching long in the silent room. All I could hear was my own breathing and the sound of my heart breaking one more time. At 6 o'clock p.m., I got up. I put the food in the fridge. No one was going to eat it. I cleared the dishes, folded the linens, put away the napkins, and tossed the flowers in the trash. They were wilted anyway. Just like me, I sat back down on the sofa, and that's when the tears started. They weren't loud or dramatic. They were silent tears, the kind that hurt the most because they come from deep inside, from the place where you keep all the disappointments you don't want to admit. I cried thinking about all the Mother's Days I'd spent alone. I cried thinking about all the broken promises. I cried thinking that I had given my whole life for them, and they couldn't give me one afternoon. I'm 70 years old, 70 years of life, 48 years of being a mother. And in that empty room, I finally faced a truth I'd been denying. My children didn't love me. Or maybe they did, but not enough. Not enough to remember, to be present, to care. Night fell. I sat there in the dark, unmoving. The weight on my chest felt permanent. I thought about calling them, telling them how I felt, but I didn't. I knew the script. Sorry, Mama. Things got complicated. Next time. A next time that never comes. It was almost 10 o'clock p.m. when I heard Malik's car pull up. Then came voices, laughter, footsteps, the key in the lock. They flipped on the light and saw me there in the dark, eyes swollen. Tanisha spoke first. Hey, Mama. We just thought we'd stop by. She was in a fancy dress, perfect makeup, smelling of expensive perfume and alcohol. Malik followed, dressed up, with that casual smile he uses when he wants something. Hey, Ma, how was your day? I couldn't answer. The lump in my throat was too large. I just looked at them and saw it all clearly. They had been at a party, having fun, while I cried alone in this empty house. Tanisha sat across from me. Malik leaned on the sofa arm. An uncomfortable silence hung in the air. Then Tanisha looked at her phone and back at me. Mama, we need to talk about something important. Malik chimed in. Yeah, we have a problem. We need you to help us. Tanisha nodded. It's urgent. The monthly bills. Everything's piled up. Malik's rent, my credit card. It's about $3,000. We need you to lend it to us. I looked at them. My children. The ones I worked for until my back broke. The ones I gave up everything for. The ones who didn't come to brunch on Mother's Day, but showed up the same night to ask for money. Something broke inside me then. Something that could never be fixed. I thought of the envelope tucked away in my bedroom. The one with the bus ticket. The one-way ticket with no return. They didn't know. They didn't know I had made a decision. They didn't know this was the last time they would see me as the quiet, submissive, ever-available mother. While they kept talking about their debts and their needs, I only thought about one thing. My name is Vivian Sterling. I'm 70 years old, and I already bought my one-way ticket. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when my children ran to hug me after school. A time when Tanisha would cling to my neck, yelling, Mama. A time when Malik sought me out to tell me everything he'd learned. There was a time when I was important to them. We were poor, but I thought we were happy. We lived in a small house on the edge of Cloverdale, Georgia. My husband Marcus worked construction. I cleaned houses. We scraped by. The children were small and innocent. They were my whole life. Everything changed when Marcus died in a construction accident. He was 42. I was 38. Suddenly a widow with 2 children, pitiful survivor benefits, and no savings. So I worked. I cleaned houses in the morning, took in laundry in the afternoon, ironed at night. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. My hands grew calloused, my back ached, my knees gave out. But I didn't care because my children were okay. They had food, school, clean clothes. I was ready to give my life for them. Tanissa, the eldest, became serious and responsible too soon, helping with Malik and the house. I felt guilty for robbing her of her childhood. Malik was a cheerful dreamer who promised he'd buy me a big house one day. I believed him. Mothers always believe their children. The years passed. The house felt smaller. Tanisha started complaining, looking at me with silent reproach for our poverty. Malik grew distant, hanging out with other boys, giving me one-word answers. But I kept working, kept sacrificing, thinking someday they'd understand and be grateful. At 18, Tanisha got a job, but saved every cent for herself. New clothes, outings with friends. When I asked for help with household expenses, she looked at me like I'd asked for a kidney. Malik barely finished school, didn't want college, got a mechanic job, and moved out 6 months later to be a man. He left without looking back, taking the money I gave him for rent from my meager savings. Tanisha left 2 years later after a marriage I wasn't really part of. When that marriage failed, she came back crying, and I took her in. Of course, I did. She was my daughter. She stayed 6 months, recovered, met another man, and left again without a goodbye. The years kept passing. I kept working, even when my body protested. And they kept coming when they needed something. Almost always money, $200 for rent, $300 for a debt, $500 for an emergency. They never fully explained. And I gave. Always. Even if it meant skipping my medicine, eating less, or turning off the heat, because they were my children, because I loved them, because I thought someday they'd change. But that day never came. And then came that Mother's Day. The day I sat in an empty living room, dying inside, while they were at a party. The day they showed up that night, smelling of fun and a life I never had, and asked for $3,000 as casually as for a glass of water. That's when something finally clicked. I told them I didn't have it. Tanisha got angry. But Mama, you always have something tucked away. Malik was more direct. Ma, we seriously need this. If we don't pay, we're in trouble. They expected me to give in. I always did. But this time, I said no. I told them my Social Security was just $1,200 a month, that it covered my basics, and that I had nothing left. Tanisha exhaled in frustration. Unbelievable, right when we really need you. Malik's thanks anyway was empty and cold. They left without a proper goodbye, without asking how I was, without seeing the table I'd set, without caring. I stayed awake all night, my mind replaying a lifetime of sacrifices met with indifference. To them, I was just an ATM, a resource, not a person, not their mother. The next day, I decided to investigate. I looked at their social media. There it was, Tanisha at expensive restaurants, on beach trips, at parties, living a luxurious life while asking me for rent money. A post from the party she went to instead of coming to me read, "Perfect day with my favorites." Perfect. While I was saving food no one would eat. Malik's profile showed bars, new clothes, concerts. Then I saw a chilling screenshot Tanisha had accidentally posted. It was a chat between them called Sterling Kids. "Malik, did you ask the old woman yet?" Tanisha, "Not yet, but I know how to work her. She always falls for it." Malik, lol. "Yeah, poor thing. But hey, that's what she had us for, right? To take care of her when she's old. And in the meantime, she can fund us a little longer." The old woman, poor thing, fund us. My hands shook. I was nauseous. I looked in the mirror and saw a 70-year-old woman, worn out, with sad eyes and hands deformed from work. This was the woman they mocked. I tallied the money I'd given them over the last 5 years. $20,000. Money they'd spent on whims while lying about emergencies. In that moment, I understood. If I didn't change this, no one would. They were never going to wake up one day grateful. I had 2 options: continue like this until I died alone and forgotten, or choose myself for the first time in 70 years. I chose myself. With the help of my kind neighbor, Ellie, I saw a lawyer, Avery Jones. He explained my rights. I was not obligated to fund my adult children. I could protect what little I had. I changed my will, opened a secret bank account, and started planning my escape. I researched a quiet coastal town called Coastal Haven, a place with an ocean I'd always dreamed of seeing. I sold things quietly, saved every cent. I bought a one-way bus ticket for a date 2 months away. It was my promise, my hope. But before I left, I needed closure. I invited Tanisha and Malik for a family dinner, telling them I had something important to announce. Of course, they came. They always came when they thought they might get something. I cooked their favorite childhood dishes. The table was set beautifully, a dignified Last Supper. They arrived together, laughing. We made small talk over the meal. Afterward, I placed a tray in the center of the table. On it were envelopes and documents. My voice was firmer than I expected. "I called you here because I know everything," I began. I laid out the printed screenshots of their mocking chat. I showed them the list of $20,000 I'd given them over 5 years. I showed them their own social media photos of luxury while they pleaded poverty. I told them about my lonely Mother's Day. They tried to interrupt, to justify, to say they were just kidding. I stopped them. "Don't lie to me anymore." I showed them the legal documents. The new will where they would inherit little. The papers showing I'd moved my money. "It means you won't manipulate me anymore. You won't get another cent from me. It's over." They were stunned. Tanisha cried tears of shame, not remorse. Malik called me crazy, said I was overreacting, that they were my family. "Exactly," I said. "You're all I have." And that's very sad because what I have is nothing. I gave them each an envelope containing keys to a safe deposit box with their father's mementos, the only inheritance they'd get from me while I lived. Then I asked them to leave. In the weeks that followed, I sold the house, gave away my furniture, and finalized my plans. Tanisha came once, begging for another chance, worried about the inheritance. I told her I was leaving for good. Malik texted, asking me to reconsider for the family. I didn't reply. On the day of my departure, as my dear friend Ellie was seeing me off at the bus station, Tanisha and Malik found us. They had begged Ellie for my whereabouts. They pleaded one last time, angry about the sold house, crying about their future. I handed them each a final letter, detailing my sacrifices and my final decisions about my will and money. Their shock was palpable. As my bus was called, Malik asked, "Then what are we now?" I looked at him and said the truth that had set me free. Nothing. I boarded the bus to Coastal Haven. I didn't look back. Now I wake up early and watch the sunrise over the ocean from my small house. I breathe the salty air, walk on the beach, and have found friendship with a group of wonderful women who understand starting over. I am simply Vivian. I recently turned 71. My friends here threw me a small party. They sang, they hugged me, and I believed their affection was real. Sometimes I think of Tanisha and Malik. I wonder if they're okay, if they learned anything. But then I remember, it's no longer my responsibility. I gave them 50 years. These final years are mine. My name is no longer just Tanisha and Malik's mother or Marcus's widow. My name is Vivian Sterling, a 71-year-old woman who lives by the ocean, has true friends, and finally knows the taste of freedom. I finally learned that self-love isn't selfish, that choosing your own happiness isn't cruel. My story with them ended, but my story, it's just beginning, and this one is all mine.